All righty. So, on behalf of Dos Madres Press, I'd like to welcome you to a book launch and reading by Henry Weinfield, celebrating his new book, An Alphabet. I'm Norman Finkelstein, for those of you who don't know me, and I think most of you do. Henry has asked me to do a brief introduction, and I really will keep it brief. I simply wanted to say at last Weinfield has learned his ABCs after 70 plus years. But I think that would be a little too brief. And also I want to be at least somewhat serious. I think the idea of an alphabet makes a great deal of sense to me, that Henry would write a book like this, and write a book like this at this point in his trajectory. Some of you know that Henry and I go back a very long way. He was my first creative writing teacher, and one of the things that I think he always implicitly was teaching me was that poets are the caretakers of language. And I think that there's something about being a caretaker of language that takes you to the micro level, the most granular of dimensions for understanding how language works. And so it makes a good deal of sense to me to think that Henry is engaging in this book with the most fundamental tools of the poet. That in turn connects for me to Henry's techniques. And I'm going to read just a couple of sentences from the chapter I wrote about him in my book, Like a Dark Rabbi, where I am addressing his techniques in relation to what have come to be understood as standard modernist techniques in poetry, which are rather different from what he employs. And I'm talking about the modernist idea of defamiliarization. That modernist techniques in the arts seek to make the work strange. And I say, for readers accustomed to modernist techniques, they might feel that the old-fashioned, quote unquote, rhyme and meter deployed in Weinfield's work with such straightforward expression and such apparent ease is in itself estranging to them. Confronted with this radical alternative to what is usually taken to be innovative poetry, quote unquote, Weinfield's reader is not called upon to, quote unquote, translate, explain, or paraphrase his poems, rendering them into a comprehensible or accessible readerly discourse. Rather, the reader must move more directly to an engagement with the poet's ideas and their often complex expression through the mediating forms of the verse. Depending on the horizon of reader expectations, form can be every bit as defamiliarizing in Weinfield's poetry as in more obviously experimental modernist and postmodernist work. But the other side of that, and this is really another of the great sources of pleasure in Henry's poems, is that there is a wonderfully warm and inviting mode that is created, atmosphere that is created through his use of rhyme and through his use of form. So he's really performing, the work is really performing what to me is both the upper and lower limit of what poetry can do. On the one hand, it makes things strange for us, defamiliarizes, but at the same time, it consoles, it comforts, it gives us very immediate pleasures. And as I watched the alphabet unfold, because Henry was sending me each poem as it emerged, I recognized that. And I recognized how witty and charming and smart this poetry is. And now he's going to share some of it with us. So, Henry, you're on.
Thanks so much, Norman. I really appreciate it. And thanks to Robert and Elizabeth Murphy for bringing out the book. I'm so grateful to them. And I'm very grateful to my wife, Joyce, who did the cover, which really relates to S and the second Z poem, which I hope to read tonight. I'm not going to talk about the book. I'm just going to read. I don't like it when poets talk about their work, but I just want to mention that what will be obvious, I think, I had one rule with these poems, and that was that the poem would begin with the sound of the letter and end with the sound of the letter. So the only thing is that will be difficult to hear if you don't have the book. So there's a lot of there are a lot of homonyms, not only rhymes. There's a great deal of rhyming, more than most poetry has, but there are also a lot of homonyms. So in one or two, I'll mention those. So without further ado, I thought I would begin with I, because I obviously can't read all of them. So I'm going to start with I. I spy with my little eye late summer leaves still green against the sky, young mothers with their babies passing by, girls in their girlhood playing happily. I spy with my little eye as if I were God's designated spy, the ordinary stuff of comedy, or else too frequently of tragedy. Lives wasted and weighed down by poverty, others buoyed up somehow in dignity, the young, the middle-aged, the elderly, some new to life and others soon to die. I spy with my little eye, which only sees the things that it can see and only spies the things that it can spy, blind to all else by sad necessity beyond its given singularity. My little eye formed by a little eye, my little eye formed by a little eye. J. Jaybird, jaybird, sitting on a rail, how miserable the jailbird who wastes his time in jail. How miserable the jailbird, a slave in all but name, as subject to the new Jim Crow, whose rule is much the same. Jailbird, jailbird, you cannot fly away. You'll do hard labor, serving time, unlike the lucky jay. K, this was actually the first one in the series that gave rise to the whole series. K, aka Joseph K, was having a bad day. He felt as if his feet were made of clay. He looked out of the castle down to the K, imagining the hordes of crayfish clogging up the bay. He thought of what Koheleth and Franz Kafka had to say. Things were bad all over, in every sort of way. He wondered whether in the end they might turn out okay. L. The first L you're going to hear is E-L-L-E, she in French, and then the next one is one of the names for the Hebrew God, E-L. And there's a third L later on in the poem. So L. L. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who overthrew the Ugaritic Bel, insisting, as they all do, he was all, and made us want so much, and made us small. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who gave us heaven and who gave us hell. El. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who plural transformed multiplicity into a fraudulent unicity. The Elohim from many, he made one. The choice before us now was all or none, either transcendence or the dark abyss of nothingness, eternal pain or bliss. Nor could the bliss that was proposed appeal to anything the senses could deem real. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who tempted us until at last we fell. El, not El, the jealous God of Israel. Morality he gave us, this is true. It was the least or most that he could do. Morality bred arrogance and strife. It made us hate our bodies and hate life. It fostered cruelty and oftentimes elicited our most egregious crimes. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who tortured Job for reasons hard to tell. Not El, but El, das ewig weibliche, La Belle, with whom I rode the Bronx-bound Broadway L that morning when we both were 17. Those were my salad days when I was green. And when at last she finally let me in, I knew her for the eternal feminine. Not El, the jealous God of Israel, who overthrew the Ugaritic Bel, but El, das ewig weibliche, La Belle. Okay, I'll do M. M is for Marshall Berman, Marx's authentic heir, elucidating Goethe's Faust in all that is solid melts into air. M is for Michael Perkins' Shock of the Marvelous, poems straightforward and succinct that chasten and enlighten us. M is for Michael Heller, objectivist since youth, who, like Oppen and Reznikov, seeks to bear witness to the truth. M is for Gladstein's Mozart, by Goyim crucified, the Yiddish poet's pathos-laden testament to genocide. M is for M.H. Abrams, scholar who left his stamp on literary studies with the mirror and the lamp and natural supernaturalism, bolstering the romantic camp. M is for David Markoff of blessed memory. Though in and out of foster homes, he still seemed happy and carefree. He turned me on to Dostoevsky's novel, Junior Year. The Gambler was his favorite for reasons that were all too clear. M is for Herman Melville, who gave us Billy Budd. Though written by an American, its prose, I think, is rather good. M is for Machiavelli, not everyone's sort of guy. His morals some think execrable. His writing gives his readers joy. Truth is his sole criterion. He's honest and he doesn't lie. M is for Montaigne's essay Experience. He knew We go to it when reason fails, as frequently it's prone to do. And M is for Montale's oneric mystery. Iris of Canaan harkens back to La Famille des Iridae, the family of irises so dear to me of Mallarmé. M is for Robert Murphy, a poet, poets bless, who with his wife Elizabeth publishes Das Madres Press. N. Entropy. I trip on N chiastically, as Mr. Ramsey did on R. The movement isn't linear, or else the alphabet has come ajar. The letters span the arc from N to P, but entropy negates the phantom of entelechy. The system undergoes spontaneous chaos in its throes. Enantiodromia is made manifest, a shuttling back and forth of opposites that never come to rest. From origins remote, we seek an end. We seek an entry point or engine that enables us to mend, defend, transcend. We seek totality, complete reality, to actualize potentiality, no matter where or when. Apart from that which happens to descend because of entropy, there is no end. I trip on N. O. O is negation to the point of zero, old Kant proposes in his first critique. And oh, from flying high as my own hero, I am cast down, negated, rendered weak. I owe to arrogance the fatal blow that laid me low and darkened my last years. I have become a shadow now, an O without a figure, as Lear's fool declares. O Pegasus, take wing again, for lo, I languish in an idiom outworn, a language that few know, of long ago, erroneous there to wander and forlorn. O Pegasus, since that catastrophe in which apostrophe was doomed to go down to perdition, I have called to thee from here among the shadows down below. And P has an epigraph from French. P, tant pis, de mal en pis, de pis en pis. Worse, so much the worse, from bad to worse, from worse to worse. P. P, tant pis, de mal en pis, de pis en pis. P goes to cell phone, it's another text. If it's not one thing, then it is the next. As soon as you are seated in your chair, Lisa the robot calls from who knows where. She wants to talk about the student loan you never had. She won't leave you alone until in desperation you agree to purchase an extended warranty for one thing or another. Don't decline. She's sure to call you on another line. You're writing verse? Nothing is more adverse. The Chinese water torture isn't worse. Pis, tant pis, de mal en pis, de pis en pis. P for the sins, peccata, on your brow. You'd need an angel to excise them now. To purge yourself and purify desire, you'd have to pass through the refining fire. And untoward desires hard to purge, try as you might if you don't have the urge. This is the problem of divided will of which Augustine spoke. It's with us still. And so the church, to shorten a long story, I say it in respect and to its glory, out of the need to purge, made purgatory. In its great wisdom, reasoning that the dead would enter in the fire with less dread than those still burdened by a living body, pain being a deterrent for everybody. But back to you, without being purified, you always let your pleasure be your guide. In short, you put the cart before the horse. Now things are bad and they are getting worse. Pis, tant pis, de mal en pis, de pis en pis. Pipi sauvage, indignantly the French call public urination, both for the stench assailing them, Paris smells like a trench, and for the thought, which makes most Frenchmen blench. Is this a metaphor for our own day, when nothing's valued if it doesn't pay? Of Western civilization, shall we say, that heartlessly we're pissing it away? Don't put the blame on those of other races, on immigrants, or on the lower classes. The rot stems from within. It has its basis in our own failure to clean up our messes. Without the benefit of the commode, the Greeks thought urinating in the road, being sacrilegious, would provoke a god to wreak harsh vengeance from his high abode. Vide the works and days of Hesiod. But we who are endowed with modern plumbing, with all conveniences, most of them mind-numbing, we treat the public sphere as though we're slumming. A reckoning will come. I've seen it coming. Pis, tant pis, de mal en pis, de pis en pis. I'll skip Q and move to R. R is unruly, as all rebels are. Try to contain her, she will come ajar and scatter out the contents of her jar. Maybe this sounds like I'm still stuck on P, having succumbed once more to entropy, as when I tripped on N chiastically and desperately in need of therapy. But no, it's R, the unruly one, I rue. No Greek like P, but Swedish through and through. Improbably a Lutheran turned Jew. A curious combination of the two, because of which much mischief might ensue. I wanted R to frame a serious discourse on art. Was I delirious? The prospect struck her as hilarious. Ars longa vita brevis is the hope that human finitude will have a scope beyond the individual. Like a dope, I tried to foist on R this tired trope. Also, I hoped she'd castigate the gall of those who tape bananas to the wall and call it art. Imposters, large and small. Who cares, said R, good riddance to them all. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? She sang these words one morning in my ear, and hearing them, I was already there. Often she takes me in her magic car. I am born darkly, fearfully afar, where all things random and unruly are. S. S is the serpent in sound, sight, and sign. S is its hiss, its wandering, wavering line, curving and then recurving, serpentine. The Semites called it shin and sometimes sin. Because of them, we're in the shape we're in. Tooth is its meaning and its origin. Sharper than all things is the serpent's tooth. This adage is best learned in early youth. Those who are bitten taste the bitter truth. The Romans, rounding it, gave it a form apparently defanged of sinuous charm. Here was a serpent that could do no harm, a symbol of perpetually renewed vitality, abundance, plenitude, perennial return, infinitude. This concrete sign of metamorphosis, oneric and chthonic wisdom, is synonymous with sex in Genesis. Sex was a serpent in the hissing glade that promised paradise, my sonnet said, which we, being innocent, could not evade. The serpent that in springtime sheds its skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in, is for the Abrahamic culture's sin. Thus sex is sin and is the serpent too. We've had to swallow down this witch's brew for 3 millennia. Are we finally through? Not that the serpent in its pagan strain has lost its fangs. It causes grievous pain. All the diseases in their woeful train, despair and death, fall under its domain. But life and death are curiously combined, sickness and health, joy, sadness. You will find on the caduceus 2 serpents twined. You must accept their contradictory pronouncements, as the poets all agree, from Wallace Stevens to Paul Valéry. Though Plato and Parmenides will shun the many in their quest to find the one, the choice before you isn't all or none. You must embrace a serpentine sagesse, a complementary wisdom that says yes to multiplicity, the plural S. T. T is for truth, assuming there is any. Truth isn't truth, said Rudy Giuliani. Truth isn't truth? In that case, you can't lie, or else can do it with impunity. That sums up these 2 miscreants to a T, both Giuliani and his boss, DT. You. You, being singular and plural too, embraces multitudes, but even so can be one only one is 2. Whom you address is you, and as things go, you are the one whom you are talking to. I is another, said Arthur Rimbaud. I is another, maybe more than few. Talk to yourselves and find out what they know. Acquaint yourself with others who are you. V. This is another one that has a French epigraph. Vie, la vie, ah oui, c'est la vie. Life, life, ah yes, that's life. V. Vie, la vie, ah oui, c'est la vie. V is for Venus, loving mother of every living thing. On earth, the many-colored springtime flowers are blossoming. High in the sky, the happy-hearted birds are taking wing. Foster us, goddess, lift our spirits in this troubled spring. V is for velleities of various kinds. It seems we build our lives on fantasies, on wishes, hopes, and dreams. Velleity, the lowest of the powers of volition, because it wills but doesn't act, brings nothing to fruition, and in so doing testifies to our abject condition. V is for the ventilators we must now supply, lest those who have pneumonia and can't breathe without them die. V is for the vanities we nurtured, sad to say, investments in inanities accruing day by day, and for the false verities the virus swept away. Vie, la vie, ah oui, c'est la vie. I'll just read two more. Y, I was going to read X, but X is in the Madres catalog, so I won't read that one. I'll read Y, and then I'll read Z, the second Z. Y and Y asked why, met at a hospital, raising his fist to the sky. Why are we born and why must we die? Asked Y. Y asked why, in reply said, why ask why? Why and why ask why, met on the banks of a river gone dry. It was filled with tires and condoms, many feet high. Why have we done this? Asked why, starting to cry. Why ask why, in reply said, why ask why? Why and why ask why, considered the exculpation of one who'd been proven to lie, as even the FBI has never sought to deny, in regard to the flim-flam man's conniving to buy his way to the White House and offer us up to the Russians thereby. Why did the Justice Department presume to defy centuries of legal precedent? Asked why. Why ask why, in reply said, why ask why? And the last one is the last poem in the book, Z2. Z is the last. It looks back on the past, having no letters to look forward to. It marks an end, a limit we defend, lest chaos come and nothingness ensue. Without horizons, there could be no meaning. Z is the last, no use then in complaining. But Z reversed, turned upside down, is first, and Janus' face looks both to Y and A. Having rehearsed the steps that it traversed, it wonders what the future has to say. The language changes as it runs its course, but is a cyclic poem at its source. The letters wait for some articulate practitioner of discourse or of song. The alphabet has never failed us yet, though lying speech has often steered us wrong. Upon these letters, a mere 26, depends our poetry, our politics. Do not equivocate, the letters state. Avoid all vagueness and pretentiousness. Do not conform to any form or norm. Keep in your memory that more is less. Though learning is synonymous with letters, do not let learning tie you up in fetters. Integrity depends on clarity. To say the letter killeth is to choose the insanity of Christianity in seeking to obliterate the Jews. Without the letter, how could we inherit anything of the richness of the Spirit? The alphabet will not let us forget that truth has given us no immunity. It will not let the crimes that we abet go unremembered with impunity. Our history is graven in the word, and words cannot be endlessly deferred. My alphabet allowed me to beget each of these poems through its letters sound. It gave them birth, whatever they are worth. I was the instrument for what I found. But now it's done. My alphabet has gone from A to Z. Now I can sleep, sleep easy, Z, Z, Z. Thank you.
I'm going to unmute everybody so they can applaud and see if they want to talk to Henry a little bit.
I hope I didn't go on too long.
Not at all.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
So it's actually very hard to read on Zoom, as some of you already know, because it's so abstract. You know, and I when I read, I tend to recite. I know my poems by heart, but then I get scared that I'll forget something, and I start to look, and I couldn't see the light. It was very bad because I closed the light, so so I couldn't see the pages. Anyway,
Lovely reading, Henry.
thank you for listening.